Hey everybody, welcome back to Creating Scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Today is the video that I promised that I'd put together last week on the most current versions of all the software that we're using to create scenery. Now, just a caveat, these are all free, okay? These are not any versions that you would pay for. So if you buy your licenses, this video does not cover any purchased software. These are all free resources, with the exception of the first two that I'm going to tell you about, because you don't have any choice, and that is the flight simulator itself. We are currently at Sim Update 13. Obviously, if you start the sim, it's going to update anyway, but just recheck the version number for the sim is 1.34.16.0. Also, don't forget to update your SDK because there is an update for that as well. The current version of the SDK is 0.22.3. Okay, and you'll probably want to update the documentation as well for the SDK, which has the same version number. Okay, but anyway, that's the only purchase software of this whole thing that we're talking about. All right, so I got some tabs up here to show you the most important pieces of software. I think there's some other pieces of software that I'll mention, but I don't use them as much. So let's get going. So obviously the first one, if you are a Blender modeler, the most current version of Blender is 3.6.4. However, here's another caveat. I've been working with this, and a lot of the other developers that I talk to, a lot of us are still on 3.3. And then put an X at the end because there's 3.3.1 on up. Okay, I'm currently using 3.3.5. I have talked to a couple people that have 3.4. And they seem to be doing fine, but I'm not ready to make that step yet. I'm not afraid. It's just that I'm working on a project right now, and I just don't want to mix and match until I'm finished with that. But the reason I say the current version, I mean, you can obviously use Blender 3.6 if you wanted to, but it's the question of the most important add-on of them all, and that is the Asobo exporter. Okay, so my recommendation is I wouldn't go above 3.4 right now. Now, I do know a couple creators that are using 3.4, and so I'm going to go ahead and say it's in a steady state with the exporter, or vice versa. But for my use, I'm still at 3.3.5. All right. Now, let's go to the exporter. Oh, obviously, you get Blender at blender.org. Okay, most of these have an org at the end. Okay, so for the Asobo exporter, this is the puts the MSFS params and exporting your collections and stuff, obviously. This is Asobo's GitHub page, and what you're going to want to look at is GLTF Blender IO MSFS. Click that and come down here to releases, and the most up-to-date release is 1.3.2, and this is the one that I have installed as well. For a while I was using 1.3.0, and I used that for a long time, and then I jumped up to 1.3.2. But it is stable. It runs really well in my 3.3.5 Blender. But I cannot speak for any version above 3.4. I do know a couple of developers that use 3.4 and they have not seen any problems with it. Okay, but I have not tested it with Blender 3.6. Okay, now here's the thing about the Blender updates. You know, Blender is going to keep updating over and over and over. Almost, it seems like weekly anymore. But here's the thing. Probably most of the stuff that's being added to Blender, you'll never use in scenery creation. So going up from one level to the other, that's really why I haven't changed from 3.3.5 on up, because you know they're doing things at the node level, the geometry nodes and all that kind of stuff, some fancy film stuff and all that kind of stuff, and we just do not use that in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So that's my input, my recommendation. I wouldn't go above 3.4 for Blender using this update of the Asobo exporter 1.3.2. Okay, so those are the two most important. Obviously, the flight simulator itself is the most important, but for modeling, if you're a Blender user and you use the exporter. Now, do know the Asobo exporter, you don't really have to go to the GitHub page to get it anymore. Asobo actually has been adding that as part of the SDK download. Okay, this same file, 1.3.2 of the exporter, is included. The zip file is included in the SDK now, which is great, because for the years ahead, prior, all the versions prior only had 3ds Max Studio. 3ds try this one more time. 3ds I did it again. 3ds Studio. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, so you can now. They have been bundling Asobo exporter with the SDK updates, which is kind of awesome because you don't have to go to the GitHub. But sometimes they'll do something with the exporter and load it up on their GitHub page, and the SDK hasn't been updated to have that new version. You guys with me? All right. Anyway, Asobo's GitHub page. Go to the current release, and then you can download the zip. Okay, don't need to do the code. All right, just download the zip, and the new SDK documentations has a really nice, clean install of how to do the install of the exporter. So that takes care of that. Now, a lot of you guys don't use this tool. Some of us do, and that's QGIS. Okay, it used to be named Quantum Geographic Information Systems. That's what the Q is. Okay, but everybody, they just shortened it to QGIS. You'll hear people say QGIS and all that. It's not. That's not how you say it. It's called QGIS. Pet peeve of mine, since GIS is what I do professionally, Geographic Information Systems. All right, so QGIS, current version is 3.32. Okay, this is a powerful mapping analysis tool, but many scenery creators have been using it to create photos, new photo overlays in the sim, or digital elevation models and things like that, because you can do it with this. And most of them are using QGIS because it is free. In the GIS world, this would be the #2 best GIS software in the world. Okay, it is very robust. If you do that kind of analysis, it works just fine. I personally don't use it. I actually have a purchase software that I use for GIS, and it is ranked the #1 software in the world, and that's ArcGIS Pro. Okay, and I'll be honest with you, I said I wasn't going to talk about paid software, but ArcGIS Pro is far superior than QGIS, and it only cost me $100 a year. Okay, so anyway, that's up. But QGIS is awesome. It really is. I do use it, but not all the time. So the current version is 3.32, and that is at qgis.org. The next software that I use all the time is Krita. Okay, the current version of Krita is 5.2.0, 5.2.0. This is what I do all of my texturing in. This is what I do all of my graphics software in. This is a Photoshop clone. This is open source and free. Remember, open source doesn't necessarily mean free, but in this case, all of these software they're all open source and free. But Krita's version 5.2. I think I'm running 5.1.5 right now. I haven't upgraded to 5.2. I just don't see a need right now. But anyway, it hasn't changed that much anyway. But that's the current version. And then last, if you're a GIMP user, and I use GIMP a lot too, I use it mainly for just what do I want to say? I use it for conversions, image conversions, that kind of stuff. It's quicker, okay? But and I use it for screen prints, all that kind of stuff. But their latest revision is 2.10.34. Okay, so this is the list of where you should be on all your software. Okay. A lot of my videos, I'm using older versions. To be honest with you, since I can't remember which update that we got, it might have been after Sim Update 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly the number. The different SDK stuff changed. Oh, it was after 5. After 5, the SDK changed quite a bit. But since then, the SDK, at least for scenery designers, hasn't really changed a lot. Okay, they've fine-tuned some things and stuff, but the workflow has been the same since that Sim update. All right. What am I trying to explain here? This senior brain of mine. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was saying. A lot of my videos, they're getting kind of aged now, way back. But the newest series that I used doing the SDK menus, that's pretty much the workflow that you should be following anyway. Back then, prior to Sim Update 5, it was almost better to do it the hard way and open up text editors and do your work at the XML level. But now I think it's stable enough, it's good enough, it's robust enough that using the menu system to do everything is a lot better than it used to be. So I don't really need to go back to my old videos and get rid of them or anything. they're there for kind of a history, I guess. But using the series where I did using the SDK menus to create a project, that's pretty much the workflow now. So it's really helpful. All right. A lot of my Blender videos that I'm using certain add-ons, such as I'm doing a series now on Bagapie. Those are all the current versions. You just need to check all your plugins and see if there's an update for your Blender. All right. So I put that on you because we all use different add-ons and stuff, but just verify that your Blender plugins are also up to date. Okay. A couple other things to update. If you have purchased airports, purchased aircraft, whatever, check where you downloaded that, such as flightsim.to, and see if there's a new update or new versions of all the different sceneries and aircraft and stuff that you use like that. I'm real particular that I make sure after every sim update I go into every single one of my sceneries and I make sure it works in the update, and then I will post the compatibility on flightsim.to. Now the thing about flightsim.to is they no longer use that compatibility button, so it's not that big of an issue, but I still go in and make sure that everything works after every sim update. You'll need to also do that with all your aircraft that you buy, to like PMDG, make sure all that stuff is up to date. So this is an up-to-date versions video as of October 11th, 2023. As things change, I'll probably have to do another update, especially with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 coming out next year. So we're all going to have to figure out what that's all about, right? But anyway, this should help you to evaluate where you are on your setup. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Please subscribe, hit the bell, notifications, all that kind of stuff, and thumbs up or thumbs down, whatever. And if you feel inclined to support me on this channel, buymeacoffee.com/myphysicalworld. And I will see you guys, just so you know, next week. Let's call it October 14th through the 22nd. Let's call it that, 2023. I will not be putting out any videos because I am going on vacation. All right. So I will see you guys on the next video. See you guys later.